You can go live. Very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the Maddow Videos podcast. This is our 13th episode today, and we are really proud of how it's coming out. Today we have a very special guest with us. We have Prathap Suthan, a titan of the Indian advertising industry. He has had more than 35 years of experience. He started off his career as a creative director at the DDP Mudra Group, then went on to being the national creative director at Grey Global Group for another decade. And now he is the managing partner and chief creative officer at Bang in the Middle, based out of New Delhi. So it is my pleasure to welcome Pradap Sudhir. Pradap, thank you for giving us your time and thank you for being here.
Very welcome, yeah. You missed out one chunk of my career. that is after Gray, I became the head of.
I skipped on to the
Yeah, I was the head of Chail, which is the Samsung agency. So
right.
and I spent almost close to 5 years there. And after that is when
Right.
Bang in the Middle happened.
Yeah. Anyway, Pradap, thank you so much for giving us your time. I think when I was thinking about what the podcast should be about, considering how you have so much experience in this field, I want to talk about the advertising field in general and how our ads are coming out today. Because honestly, what I see on screen today does not make me happy. Like emotional driven ads out there, ads that are pure exposition of facts, and ads that are designed to sell rather than to entertain. And it's a shame because we used to do it so well. India had this golden age of advertising. And I just wanted to understand from you, like, in this day and age, why should creativity and entertainment play a more important role in ads today?
Okay, so what you said about the current state of advertising. I think it's an aberration at this moment because with the pandemic and COVID and all sorts of things, nobody knows where the industry is going, or nobody knows what the economy. Anyway, we all know that the economy is come crashing down, and it's a
Right.
we are on top of a what do you call a frozen lake, right? We don't know where the ice is thin, whether you can skate fast, walk fast, whether the ice will break. You don't know, right? So everyone is being careful, right? So the current set of advertising which is going out is because of that. You don't want to overpromise too much. You have to maintain a certain sense of balance and rhythm for your ads. You don't want to go to the left, you don't want to go to the right. I want to make sure that I cross this pandemic so that life can happen again, right? So this is a, like I said, it's an exception to what advertising is, right?
Right.
But I completely understand what you're trying to get at, because unfortunately what is also happening is there is because of media or digital media and social media being far cheaper as media platforms versus traditional mainline press advertising, television advertising. uh, Anyone can and everyone can actually make an ad and put it out there, right? So there is an enormous amount of content that keeps coming out. And don't forget, uh, you know, uh, you're also fighting against dogs and cats and elephants and snakes and trees falling down and lightning. And, you never know what your timeline is going to bring up. It is not an ad all the time, right? Sometimes it happens to be an ad, but mostly it is about babies gurgling, some accidents happening, all sorts of things keep crashing down on your timeline. So at times,
Right.
and you also have great trailers to movies that keeps happening, right? So you're talking about multi-million dollar productions clashing against, a 10,000 rupee static ad, out there, right? So at times on digital
Right.
and social, you have a plethora of things happening. Okay, from animation to 3D modeling to AR, AI driven stuff and AR and machine learning and all kinds of things, adding layers on top of that, programmatic stuff happening, right? So there is so much of stuff, and again, how much do you see and how much do you retain, right? The reason is that we watch something when you know it is something which you haven't seen. So suddenly, a penguin that is talking to you has got more appeal than, let's say, Priyanka Chopra talking to you today, because there's so much of content about her already. But I haven't really seen a penguin talking, so I am inclined to watch that. And it may not be an ad. It could be somebody who's put a voice, on top of that. Maybe, like they say, one of those deep fake videos that you see, right? So you don't know what sort of content comes in, and therefore there is so much of stuff out there, and suddenly our ads in within the basket of such brilliant stuff and such incredibly funny stuff that is happening, your paid ad, so to say, looks very bland. I read a very
Right.
interesting expression the other day that we are not into brand building these days, we are into bland building. And these are brands versus blends, and I completely agree. It's such a bland promise that we make, and everybody is so right about it. There's so many things, filters that you have to use within your advertising. You don't want to piss off the feminists at one point. You don't want to piss off the political guys at the other end. Then you don't want to piss off the religious guys, the bugs. There are so many layers you put on, and suddenly somebody will have a problem with that. Why did you show this color? I mean, that color means something else. Why did you have a guy with a beard? That means something else. All sorts of shit happens, right? So a lot of marketeers and brands are completely pushing forward stuff that is extremely liked, and nobody takes cognizance of problems. They don't want to create issues with people, as is you don't know where the market is going. So from that perspective, there are so many things that are
Right.
sort of prompting us and ensuring that you do not go out of the way to create stuff. However, there was a time when, and see, today's media is very different, right? I mean, like, you can't quite argue with what happens on television, right? I mean, television is almost, it's a broadcast medium. Television speaks to you, you watch it. I mean, at best, what you can do to show revenge is you skip the ad and you go to the next channel, right? Versus social media or
Yeah.
digital, where you can actually interact with it and then say your point of view, right? Now, even in newspapers, I mean, you see the ad, you like it or you don't like it, you flip the page and move on, or magazine for that matter, or radio for that matter. You
Right.
listen to one and you keep going. There, at least, there is certain sense of credibility because suddenly that media is higher than you. It is not on equal terms. Social media makes it equal. A brand is equal. Everything is equal because you can argue. You can argue with the president. Yeah, you can argue. You can have a point of view that you want to send or a Prime Minister Modi, right? Because on Twitter you can do that. You can tag him and you can retweet him, or you can say what you want. But on television and news and regular papers, you don't. Now, to me, I still think that television and newspapers and magazines are brand making media versus social media and digital media, which I think is more brand breaking medias. You can destroy brands. One slip of the tongue, one small. I mean, the other day I saw this ad. I forgot the brand, but they had used an audio clip, sorry, a music track, which had, much like a watermark, it had that audio jungle stuff coming through the in the track, and somebody had forgotten to
Right.
actually replay the track. I'm sure they would have bought the track, but the ad went on with that audio jungle thing happening behind, and the entire world got after it. So these
Right.
mistakes happen.
We use
Nobody's
the
mistake.
same uh,
Huh?
platform actually.
Yeah,
We use
I
the
mean,
same platform.
right. I
We
mean,
get that watermark.
all of us use, right? Because if you want to buy a good track at a cheap price, I mean, that's the place you go and buy it from. But I mean, it's a mistake. It's a
Right.
genuine mistake that happened, right? But people went after it, and everybody wants to criticize because, see, it is very difficult to create. It is easy to
Right.
destroy. You can stand in front of the Mona Lisa and say, "So what a horrid painting," I don't know why she is not smiling. Maybe she's actually angry. No, really, are you able to do something like that? You cannot. It is so easy to critique and destroy and bring down something and have no point of view, right? And that is exactly what is happening to advertising. Anyone and everyone has a point of view, and everyone says it. See, in India, till social media happened, the media and the world where you could present yourself was limited to people who had a point of view, right? Who were important. The common man never really had a moment under the sun. Social media has changed everything, right? And now everybody is out there. Everybody is a creator. Everybody is a joker. Everybody wants to comment. Everybody has a highfalutin point of view on things,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
see, the trick in advertising is to be consistent. Now, unlike
Hmm.
we have, your TikTok creators and all that, all those guys create stuff, and the inherent creativity in everybody comes out, and it's a platform that allows everybody to be creative. But the trick in advertising is you have to be consistent, right? You have to be consistently creating stuff, which is an ad, which is, I mean, I have written speeches for politicians, I have written articles for professors, right? I have written radio spots, I have written television commercials, I have written full-fledged print campaigns, I've done magazine ads, I've done posts, I've done all sorts of things, right? But you have to be consistent. Every day you have to create stuff which will go out into the public domain, and you be ready for being criticized or appreciated, right? For the new age creators, I mean, they just create something, they go out, and you never know when they want to come back again, because chances are you would not find them coming back again. So everybody will have a high point. They will, I mean, imagine somebody capturing the shot of a coconut falling on somebody's head, and you were there exactly at the same spot, and you got that. But that happens once in a lifetime. That's a once in a blue moon incident that happens, and it'll never come back to you again. So you have got your 20,000 20 lakh views on a day, but after that you're zilch. You just go back into what you were, into the shadows. But for us, people who are in the advertising industry, every day you have to create. And for me, I mean, it's 35 years and I'm still doing it. At my age, a lot of people would want to retire. I mean, if I was in a government job, I would have retired by now. I have a lot of friends who've retired, who've become grandfathers, etc., etc. But for me, I think I'm still as good as I was, if not better than what I was, when I started. Because today I have control over what I want to communicate. I have control over what I can create within a certain set of parameters. All that. So many things, and again, it's all experience. So yes, coming back to what we started discussing, brands and blends. Now, blends will continue to happen. For every 100 blends, there is going to be one brand that is going to come through, which is brave enough to have a point of view and perhaps have a product benefit that is useful to me. So if you
Right.
keep doing democratic stuff, you will just keep creating blends. I mean, it's great sense for venture capitalists to put money behind all these things, so that they also have a brand in the same category, but that is the end of it. And again,
Yeah.
brands have to be built across time. A brand is like a person, right? If my name is Pratap Suthan, and today if I look like this, and this is not something which happened yesterday, I have grown a beard since the last 20 years. Now tomorrow, if I take it off and I start wearing a red, chokers, no, tennis ball red ball over here, and start to have, ears and start walking around in a sari, suddenly it's not me. you know for a brand to build itself, it has to be consistent. Of course it can evolve with the time, and you,
Sure. No,
you can't
Pratap,
start
I totally
something
agree
with
with.
yeah.
Yeah, just to add on to that, like I totally understand the fact that brands would want to take a more safer approach because their ads and communication are subject to like the public's opinion. But the way I'm seeing it is if you fear that and go for a very straightforward and expositional approach of communication, it's not really going to help you because nobody's going to end up watching your video in the first place. With,
Correct.
I mean, being infamous in a certain way would get you more views, and But here, that's not the case. People are not even watching your videos because they already know what to expect. Like
Yeah,
if it's a bike ad, okay, I know what to expect. I'm seeing this bike going to be zooming around here and there. I'm going to get some key features about the bike, which I really do not need to know right now. I can just ask about it in the showroom or have it in the end screen. But again, no thought. So why would I want to invest my time watching this when I can watch something more entertaining that's just a scroll away? Because that's the times we are in, right? The content is like we are in a content overload right now.
absolutely. Yeah,
So
you
yeah,
have
so I get
approximately
it.
three
Like,
seconds to see something. I mean,
sorry.
3 seconds is what you have. You know, if you're not
Yeah,
getting
I
three
mean, it
seconds,
used to be
you're
10
finished.
seconds. Now it's as low as 3 to 5 seconds to grab a person's attention.
Right. See, which is all again.
So
See, the thing is, I don't think the fault entirely lies with advertising agencies. I see at the end of the day, the role of the advertising agency is to create advertising, and I think half a decent agency would do their best to do something which is um, entertaining, which is attention grabbing, which will catch, there'll be a great idea within it. Now,
right,
unfortunately, and fortunately as well, do not forget the money that is going to be spent on creating that ad does not come from the ad agency. It is from the
right.
client. So the client
Yeah,
also has an equal responsibility to put out stuff which is
absolutely.
bold, right? Now, when you have a completely Me Too product, if you make chappals and, you're coming out with another pair of chappals and if there is really no difference, right? Then you have to have a bold ad idea to go with. Now, if you also say,
Right,
look, I also have a chappal, then that is it. You're finished, right? Now, again, it is also the advertiser, the owner of that brand, that needs to have that understanding, because I don't think that 90% of all advertising agencies in the world, okay, would be very proud of the fact that they want to do some really differentiated, effective advertising that is creative and will also sell their product. But a lot of clients, see, most clients today are, while they are marketing savvy, etc., and they're digitally savvy, social media savvy, etc., are not really clued on into the business of buying an idea or judging an idea. You know,
right.
while the
Spot on.
money and
Yeah,
the power is with them, they are not equipped to buy an idea. I mean, how do you judge? I mean, if I present an idea, it should grab them, right? It should grab them. There is no evaluation parameters on which they can judge an idea. It is their experience that tells them that, you know this idea is scary, but let me not do it, right? Because it's my money at stake. So therefore they go safe, and that's what happens.
right.
And that was why you see, and see, the
What I
thing is, at
see
the
more
end.
often is more than the money, they're afraid of their reputation. Like
Oh yeah,
the
I mean,
project is on their head. If they screw it up, they're answerable to their seniors or
right.
just
See,
anyone who know that they're working on it.
so yeah, so that entire chain of command, I mean, from the brand manager onwards up to the CMO and to the CEO, and of course, and then of course to the owner, somebody out there has to have a spine and say, look, if I'm going to make this brand, then it's going to be on the back of great advertising, and then for me, I need a great advertising idea to go out there. Because if it is a Me Too brand, see, the thing is, you're not creating a chapel that is going to beat gravity. Okay, if you have such a fantastic idea, okay, there are inbuilt, small little rockets that will give you, elevation and maglev, the first maglev chapels in the world, then it's okay. Then you can say introducing XYZ chapel with mag levitation, right? Then it will sell.
Yeah,
The idea itself sells.
yeah,
But if you don't have that, then at least you have to give the feeling that there is maglev over there. That you need a bold idea for that, right? The, for
exactly.
that
Yeah.
has to be backed by a client. Without the backing of a client, no advertising agency can do anything. Because mostly what happens is
In
a
fact, we could
compromise.
talk a little more about that. Like I want to talk a little more about that in a later segment.
Sure. Sure.
where we are talking about how we should have that trust between the client and the agency. But I think before that, we could just going back to that golden age of advertising thought about India.
Okay.
Like I just thought we could share some of the ads that we are very fond of from yesteryears. So
Okay.
I'm just
Sure.
playing this ad that you chose out for us.
Okay.
Here we go.
हाँ तो जमूर ये दुनिया का सबसे अच्छा जादूगर कौन है? उस्ताद हम। क्या बात है, जमूरा मुंह खोला है, सही बोला है। अब अगला करतब दिखाएगा, आदमी को कबूतर और कबूतर को आदमी बनाएगा। तो कौन आएगा? जमूरा बताएगा। ये आएगा? नहीं आएगा। ये जाओ ना, जाओ ना। बता ताली। आजा आदमी सामने, अब फेस टू फेस। तो देखो बच्चा बूढ़ा जवान आदमी औरत सब लोग देखो, ये आदमी को कैसे ये जादूगर कबूतर बनाएगा। गिली गिली हाँ तो बच्चा बूढ़ा जवान आदमी औरत फिर से इसी कबूतर को आदमी बनाएगा।
Isn't that such a beautiful ad?
You
It is so. I mean, it's unfortunately this is not an ad that too many people talk about. And it's not exactly an old ad, but it's the typical. This is what a commercial is all about. It tells you a story which is so entertaining, and it tells you the
Right.
product. Yeah,
Right.
what exactly is it based on, without forcing it
Exactly.
into your face. It
So
doesn't
I
tell you
thought
that.
ads like these where even from the even from the start, they're not talking about the product. The audience has no idea what the product is.
Absolutely, yeah.
Only until the end, when you see the copy tying it all together, the audience get this epiphany. Okay, yeah, this is
That's
where
right.
they went with, and they thank you for that. They like
Yeah, yeah,
piecing
and
things
and,
together.
and and it's something which you want to watch again and again, because there are so many layers
Yeah,
within
sure.
it. One, of course, I mean, and I'll tell you why I
Yeah.
chose this particular ad.
So there
One, of
are
course,
so many ads that we have actually gone back to YouTube and searched for,
yeah,
Like it's not
yeah,
like they appeared on our screen. We wanted to see that ad again and we went back to YouTube just to watch it again.
right. So,
So
this is,
just quickly, I just wanted to
yeah,
put ourselves in the shoes of the people who created this video, just
right.
to give other creative professions out here an idea on how we could come up with a concept like this and how we could sort of sell. Just a quick thought.
No, so obviously you'll have to think backwards, right? And say, look, what is the audience that they're trying to reach? You could say from the kind of people that they're showing, you're actually appealing to the, let's say, middle class, middle class kind of a thing, and more of a,
Right.
uh, pan India sort of an appeal. Not definitely urban,
Right.
but even the urban guys get it. I mean, we get
Yeah.
the magic within it. And don't forget, I mean, it's P and B. It's as government as it gets. Of course, the MetLife bit is there, which is the American one, which of course is very famous for their peanuts and all that, Schultz. But the whole idea has come from, and it's not it's a very generic line, right? It's the most generic
Yeah.
line that you can think of when you look at insurance, that you are safeguarding yourself from something untoward happening to you, and it so beautifully brings that alive. It's the same. I mean, that is why you buy insurance, right? Because you really don't know. You're walking down the road, and suddenly a camel can come and slam you down, or maybe a tree can fall on top of you, or your car can be hit by somebody else who's drunk. All sorts of things happen. So to me,
Right.
it
So I
captures
think the
the
concept
essence of what
stems from the
insurance is.
copy.
Say that again.
So I
I
guess
missed
the
that.
concept stemmed from the copy.
No, I
Like
mean,
anything can happen in your life.
no, that is the
So that
translation
is
of the.
probably
Yeah, that's the
that the ad
that is
agency
the
came up with and designed this whole story
yeah,
on top of
that's the
that.
that's the translation of the idea as a line. And in this particular ad, I have another reason why I chose that. Okay, a long time back, when I used to work in Mudra, I also used to work for a client called National Insurance, National Insurance, which is based in Calcutta. And so there's a friend of mine, Yogi, who was the head of the Mudra Calcutta branch. Both of us were handling this, and anything is possible was the line that I had suggested to the client, and we had built up a campaign based on that line. But of course, at that time, the people sitting there didn't think that was the right approach to go with, and they never bought the campaign. So anything is possible was a line that I thought of. Um, and so when this campaign came up, and I said, "My God, it's almost the same line, the same thought that I had." But and in a way, I was happy that somebody actually came up
Did
with
you
the same idea.
pull your idea?
Huh? No, 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 no. Of course not. I don't think anyone even knew. I think, barring me and Yogi, I don't think anybody else even knew that I did a campaign like that. I mean, full marks to the guys who came up with the campaign. But for me, that was a very personal thing. Sometimes you tend to like something because you saw something that appealed to you, right? And this is something which appealed to me because at some level I had thought of the same line, in a way.
Yeah. You're happy that your
And
idea came out.
yeah, and look at the look at how beautifully extendable this line is, right? So
Yeah.
anything can happen. Something Suddenly a man turning into this. I mean, you can, once you have the core, which is what the trigger or the idea is all about. Anyone can start creating more and more. Now that's the beauty of advertising. Great advertising will always have a central idea
You can
on
have
which.
more videos in the same series, right?
Say that again.
You can have many more ideas along the same idea.
Exactly. So that is what makes it beautiful, right? And that's what a
Right.
great brand is built on. There's always, I mean, you remember the Mastercard commercial, right? Everything else,
Yeah.
price
Some
is
things
always.
money can't buy.
But that's
For
right. I
everything
mean,
else.
there are hundreds of ads that people have created themselves and put, you can find. So that's the beauty of this. When you have a core idea, when a core platform, then anyone can, I mean, so maybe the creative director has moved on, but somebody else will come on. But because this is there, you can build on it. It's not
Build on it.
wasted money. But I don't think they've built on it much more than this. But it's a great idea. It's a generic insurance thing, and it says it so entertainingly, and it stays with you. It's a beautiful ad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those
Cool. Then
ads.
I
Like I say, I wish I did it.
really had that I wanted to share.
Yeah.
This again is very relatable. I think everyone remembers this one.
ரெண்டு மூணு நாலு அஞ்சு
चुटकी में चिपकाए फेविक्विक.
Yeah.
This still cracks me up.
Yeah. It's another brilliant ad. I mean, again, like they say, storytelling at its best. It's fabulous. I like it for one reason, because of the Tamil that comes in, that kadachachi, and the contrast between that fellow and that really polished guy who's sitting with his golf
Yeah,
club and fishing.
that's why I love that. Like within the span of 1 minute, they have created this whole hero villain kind of a context
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, and it sort of
Hero
bridges
is the
the
common
audiences for
man,
you, right?
and villain is the more high society.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is why,
It's a
like,
very
when I was thinking about how the creator, when I was thinking about how the creator must have come up with this, I think the brief that they got is, see, super glue is a product that is not very familiar to a class of audience like you see here, like the very common man. I think when it first came in, it was not very like familiar to us. But how do you make a product like that stand out to an audience like this? And the way to do that is to make him the hero of an ad like this. So I thought that's brilliant. Like They did not explain like key super glue is 10 times stickier than your normal glue. They did not go into the functional aspects at all. They
Yeah,
just made it purely for entertaining purposes. And I think that's why we still remember it, right?
correct.
Ultimately, that's what we want, brand recall.
I mean, look
You,
at that. I
I,
mean, as an interesting side angle to it, it's an ad that sticks, right? It goes with the
right.
glue, right? And the
Yeah,
sheer ridiculousness of that moment, because it has to work underwater. The fish has to be have to be attracted to
yeah,
that, all that. I mean, obviously it doesn't happen, but still, the ridiculousness of the whole thing is what
right,
you know gets you. And again, you want to watch it over
right.
and over again.
Yeah. But bringing back to your point of how you said that brands are more comments they may get. So if you imagine an ad like this coming in social media platforms today, I mean, some people might certainly bring it up like, hey, will this super glue work underwater? You're making a
Absolutely,
false
and
product
and
claim.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Now I don't know whether you are aware, but there is this new certain set of guidelines that the government has come up with, right? Which came about a month ago, or it's in the draft stage, where they say that you can't really exaggerate. Now, if you actually read through the uh, guidelines, and if you take this particular ad, uh, this ad doesn't work if you follow the norms of current exaggeration, as how the government has put it. And it's crazy because sometimes you have to exaggerate. I mean, the current. In fact, I also spoke about it the other day. The way they have written out their legalese when it comes to exaggeration, people should not really expect much more than what it can deliver. Now, sometimes advertising is all hype. It's hyperbole. Advertising is built on magnifying a product advantage or a product benefit. So I don't think. I mean, obviously, lawyers wrote it. I don't think they understood what advertising needs to be. If that is the case, tomorrow somebody will come up with cinema and say that you cannot exaggerate cinema. I mean, this is to me, it's a 30-second film, cinema, right? That's what advertising is. It is your escape from the dreariness of reality. Advertising is an escape,
Exactly. Absolutely.
and people don't really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on there. Like, I was thinking, like, people would want to watch ads to sort of take a break from what they were already doing. And if this ad is not more entertaining than what they've already been doing, then why would they want to spend their time there?
Exactly. I mean, you remember the little ad, right? The woman and the waterfall,
Yeah,
famous Alec Padamsi ad. You know,
right,
I
right.
mean, in fact, the insight was about the freedom that a woman had, while she was bathing, and that
Amazing,
and
yeah.
that's when it truly, blooms to life, so to say. You can
Mhm.
always say that nobody ever takes a bath under. You can't have a waterfall inside the house. I mean, it's an escape. I mean, if you look at that moment in time, if you go back, this is I think mid 70s. I think you go back into the
Right.
typical life of a housewife, so to say. I mean, it was very tough. Life was very tough, and that the bath that she had was her only solace. I mean, even that time, television wasn't there. You know, uh,
Right.
this I remember first seeing it as a film in cinema halls. I don't think television came up when 82, 83,
Yeah,
along with Asia. Before that, it was you saw them only in theaters. you know,
got it. Cool. So I think we'll move on to again what we talked about, the brand and agency relationship. So I started off this segment by writing it down like too many cooks spoil the broth. Advice for marketing professionals on how to trust and work with creative agencies to create memorable ad campaigns. So, if there are video marketing professionals here right now, like what advice would you give them, like on how to work with another creative agency and sort of give that trust to them that they will ensure a really good creative output as well as have your brand messages out there?
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's very easy for me to say this, but what I think is the one thing that is currently missing, or one thing that needs to happen, is the process of writing a brief. There's a
Right.
document called brief, right, which the
Yeah.
client writes, gives the agency, and that is where everybody sits down in the marketing team, along with everyone who's concerned, right? They sit down and write a
Yeah.
brief for that campaign that needs to be done, including the amount of budget they would have. Okay, and earlier on, if I go back to my earlier avatars, right, in Mudra, Gray, and Chael, there was a time when the CMO or the head of marketing would actually sign off on that brief. Means everybody who is a decision maker in that company they have agreed to the direction that the brand is giving the agency to take. Okay, and there are no questions about it. And once the brief comes into the agency people, the strategy people, and the planner, along with senior creative guy, would sit down and discuss the brief, and then they would arrive at the creative brief. Okay, there's a marketing brief that comes in, and
Right.
then it translates into the creative brief. And there are formats within every agency has its own briefing format, where
Right.
proposition, etc., written out, and then given to the creative department to create stuff. Now, this process makes a lot of things easier. You know, Unfortunately, this doesn't happen today. Okay, I
Yeah.
can
I was
I
about
can
to say,
say
like, we all
90,
follow this process.
yeah, I can say 99% of clients out there do not know how to write a brief, and will not write a brief because they think it is below them to write a brief. They will say,
Right.
"Look, I have hired you, so therefore you are subservient to me. I want to launch a pair of chappals. Now you go and do it." It is impossible to go back to them with something which will make sense to
Right.
everybody in that team, because no one knows what the brief is. You get what I
Right.
mean? I mean, like, you have to see, if I say, Noel, I want you to go, okay? And the question is, now where the hell
Okay.
do I go? Now, if I say, okay, Noel, I want you to go to Bombay, okay, it is clear. There is a direction. I want you to go to Bombay. Then I'm going to think, saying, how the hell do I go to Bombay? If I say, okay, now you need to establish, as a client, you need to establish what needs to be said
Right.
by the portrayed by the advertiser. How to say it is the advertising agency's business. So if you say, Noel, I want you to go to Bombay, and then you will come back and tell me, saying, look, there are 10 different ways of going to Bombay, right? I can take a plane, I can take a train, I can walk it, I can take a cycle, I can take a bullock cart, or on the other hand, I can zap myself into the tiniest of sort, get on top of a beam, and go and do something. Or I can walk all the way to Pakistan. I can get into Pakistan, and from Pakistan I can go to Dubai, and from Dubai I can take a plane. I can come to Bombay. There are hundreds of ways. Suddenly, you're opening up many more ways of going to Bombay, right? I can actually, from Delhi, I can go to Calcutta, take a boat, and come all the way around India and come to Bombay. There are so many ways of going to Bombay. Then you need to figure out which is the most effective way of reaching Bombay, right? But that direction, going
Right.
to Bombay, is never given. So because that is not there, then you don't know what you are judging the produce with. There is no scale on what you
Yeah.
need to measure. Now, so get the brief right, get everybody to sign off, and then give it to the agency. Because currently what happens is, You're given a brief, the agency interprets in its own way, comes back to the client, and the client says to, I don't know what this is. This is crap that you have done. And then if he buys that, then it goes to the next guy who says, who the hell asked you to do this? This is not what we
Right.
want. Right? And then if everybody agrees and the CMO says, but then we're not even launching this, why did he even look at it? Because then you realize
So
it's
more
based
of
on the brand.
what happens to us is that the first briefing stages go very well. Like we'll create an exact storyboard and give them exactly the kind of preview of what the final output is going to be. But I think there is this innate fear in them that if they don't get involved in the creative process, the film is going to crap. Like,
No, tell me
so
one
whatever.
thing. Look, it is clearly, why is an agency hired? The agency is hired because the client cannot do what an agency can.
Right,
That is why you're hiring a client, an agency, right? Why do you go to a dentist to fix your tooth? Because you can't fix it yourself. You have a problem with your tooth,
right,
right? It is your what is that? The wisdom tooth, which is coming slanted, etc., etc., which was figured out in the last X-ray, which you took about 5 years ago. Now I think you're just giving me trouble. You can't do it yourself, so you go to a dentist. Right now, do you
no, the
twist and
problem
turn?
is
Do you sit there
the
and tell
problem
the
is
dentist,
huh?
huh?
They know that they know that they can't do it,
Correct.
but the point
Correct.
is like,
That's
they
what I'm
still
saying.
want to tell you how to do it.
That's exactly. But you don't go do that to the dentist, do you? You don't tell them, look, I want you to stand over here and drill over here and take that drill, the blue drill, the green drill, and you do that, and then you give me an injection over here. I mean, any dentist would slap you, right, and ask you, get the hell out of my office. I mean, out of my clinic, correct?
Right.
That's what they would say. I mean, do you go to your lawyer and say, look, this is how I want you to argue the case? Do you go to the chef in the restaurant and say, look, this is exactly how I want my dal to be made? No, that guy has got a recipe. He's famous for that dal. He will only make it that way because otherwise it goes against what the restaurant stands for. I mean, you go to any specialist and do you tell them? You don't. But when it comes to advertising, because it's anybody's game, because anybody can have a point, like I said earlier, told you, which is what is currently happening, everybody has a point of view on advertising. It is the most easiest thing to do, right? And again, now,
Right.
how are you judging something? So I show you something.
Thoughts on how we can solve this?
Say that again.
Any thoughts on how we can solve this?
Oh, no. The only way to solve it is saying that you're the agency, you're the guys who know this best. Come back and tell us what needs to be done. Trust the agency.
That trust is right.
Yeah, exactly. I've been doing this for 35 years. And for 35 years, my career is full, brimming with brands that have been successful. Whether they have liked what I have done, whether the market has bought the work that I have done, the market has changed, the market has done the work that I have followed the work that I have done, and they've successful. So I have a 35-year record of creating brands that are successful. I have very few brands that I have failed, and I have failed only for reasons which are beyond advertising more than anything else. So that is the experience that I bring to the table. Now you have 2 years in marketing. Are you going to tell me if this ad is not going to work? I don't like the idea. On what basis are you telling me?
Yeah.
A lot of people. So when I narrate a script to somebody, yeah, it's very simple. I try to keep my detailing of my story as expansive as possible because a lot of people miss out on details.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you how it happens. Imagine a person walking down the street. Okay, as simple as that.
Mhm.
Now, what did you imagine? Tell me, Noel. Tell me what you
Just
saw.
you explain to me, like just a man in a street, not many details.
Okay, now tell me, how old was this man?
He's a young chap my age.
No, I saw a 70-year-old man. Okay, Was he
Yeah.
was he Indian? Was he white? Was he black? Was he Chinese? Was he Japanese? Was he Arab? What was he?
He was an Indian.
No, I saw a white man. Okay,
Right. I see where
which,
you're getting it.
which year was this set?
This year.
No, I saw this. This is a cowboy, Wild West, Wild West. What time of the day was it?
It was noon.
No, this was evening.
Right.
Okay, how many people were on the street?
10:20.
No, it was empty. Okay, were there clouds in the sky?
I didn't go to the sky.
Exactly.
It was not that kind of a view.
Yeah, because I'm seeing a smoky sky. Right now,
Right.
see how one single line has given you a completely different picture,
Perception. Yeah.
and what I had in my mind was very, very different. Now
Absolutely.
imagine this is just one line. Now from here goes, if I tell you the entire story, you're seeing something else completely different. I'm seeing something else, and obviously the way to bridge that gap is by putting pictures so that I can lead you, saying
Yeah.
I need to be very clear. Okay. Now
It'll be
again,
as descriptive as
you,
possible.
you're not hearing the music in that film.
Right.
You know, I'm actually in the cowboy movie. I'm actually hearing Carnatic music.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, at the end of my film, you actually see a Carnatic singer, which is it's an aberration to have a Carnatic. Because see, that is at the end of the day, that's advertising, right? You kind of completely change the paradigm. You show something
Yeah.
completely new. It's like the penguin that was singing. You show something which should not have been there.
Right.
So, how do you judge? So, this comes only after years of understanding and hearing scripts, where you take away everything else, you take away all the details, and then you understand the crux of the idea. Okay, and you say,
Yeah.
I see the idea. You know, now can you make this idea bigger? Can you do this? People never see idea; they get caught up in details, and then they are, in a whirlpool of something else, which is what
Right.
happens. Is the right? They don't have the experience to judge ideas. You can watch a
How
cricket
would
match.
they get this? How would they get this experience? Like, rather than having to work with many agencies, is there any way they can?
No, see that's the thing. No, so leave that judgment to the advertising agency.
Yeah. So have that trust.
Yeah, have that trust because you don't have it with you. You will not have it with you. Saying, okay, you think it's a great idea? Can you back it? I said, I'm absolutely convinced, yeah. Because see, when I come and pitch something to you, I don't want you to buy the idea, buy my conviction. I'm
Yeah.
35 years, I'm telling you, I can put my thinking behind and say, this is going to work. Trust me. If you don't trust me, there's nothing I can do. But it's now, you want me to do a regular ad? I will do a regular ad. It's your money you want to blow up your money, which is exactly what happens. See, I am not in a position, I am in an independent agency. I need my revenues to come in, right? I
Yeah.
also have a spot. Now, if you think I'm being too aggressive in selling an idea, right? I'm not trying to steamroll you into buying an idea. I'm trying to tell you, look, go with my experience, go with my judgment. I think it works for you because of XYZ reasons. Trust that. Because see, there is nothing concrete I can give you except for my gut.
Yeah.
My gut feeling tells you that it's going to work. So go with it. And
Absolutely.
that's what great clients do because great clients know that, look, from a marketing perspective, I know what needs to be done. This is somebody else's
From a
job.
creative
He's,
perspective, let me
he's
talk about
completely convinced about it. Let me back that conviction. How do you think great advertising is created? Nobody knows, right? I mean, did any one of us know the pandemic was going to happen? None of us knew. You couldn't have built it into your marketing matrix, right? You couldn't
it.
have.
Yeah.
How do you think great advertising was ever born? I mean, it's always about backing a great idea. Oh, I love the idea. Let's go with it. I don't trust you. You will deliver it. I mean,
Right.
most of the advertising, so most of the 99% of all the advertising that I have done, I've only gone with my gut. I did not know how. I mean, look, and how did that happen? Because across the years, I've started. I've got a feeling of the people. I have
Yeah.
the emotion of the country. There is this common thing that binds us together. You know,
Absolutely.
coming to think of that, a lot of my advertising that I do, I don't use language. Okay, now,
More visual.
yeah, I come from Kerala, as you know, and Kerala and people from Kerala and Hindi don't go together. Somehow we just can't get our heads around the language. I mean, our grammar goes for a toss. Of course, I mean, today I know a bit of Hindi. I can survive in Delhi, but I am not equipped to write a Hindi spot with dialogue. Okay, and this is something which I recognized long back. So therefore, I would never make my commercials heavy with dialogue. It
Right.
was more visual. I would have actually sent you an ad, Ajanta clocks.
Shall I
Can you?
just play that?
Yeah, play
The
that.
sample?
Yes.
I'm tough on myself, tougher on what I represent. I break new grounds, find the next expression, explore the next feeling, touch the next emotion. What is the next thing I've got to do to better myself? What is the next bar I have to raise? I create paths where there are none. I keep challenging myself every moment, and the moment after that. It's not the easiest thing on earth, but it's the finest. I'm never satisfied, and that's what keeps me going. I am the next. I am Samsung Mobile. Samsung Mobile. Next is what?
No, not this one.
Not this one.
Oh, Ajanta clocks. I would have sent it to you anyway. If you
Right.
remember, there was this woman who was knitting, and suddenly there's an orchestra that comes around her and they play music, right? And so
Yeah.
Ajanta clocks was one of my first, I think, my first ever commercial. Okay,
Okay.
actually, second. Now that has no language; it's just music, right?
Right.
There was a problem because Ajanta clocks at that point in time were seen and considered by the market as a noisy thing. Okay, and the client had too many of these things stuck in his go down, and he wanted to sell this. So I
Okay.
converted the noise into enjoyment. Okay, and it became a hot seller. And I'm sure everybody would know that they would have seen this ad 100 times in their lives because they've played that for ages. I think for 15, 20 years they ran the same commercial, and that brand was built on this commercial. And this is one of my first commercials that I did, and this commercial has also won almost every award under the sun in India. Now, this again, there's no language. Okay, so when I was hired by Chail, the head of Chail was a Korean gentleman, and we were discussing something, and there was a campaign that needed to be done, and I said, like, let's do one thing. Let's call the creative team that was working on it, and let them present the commercial to us, the campaign to us. And they started presenting the commercial, and it was in Hindi. And so then I said, look, can you stop? Can you explain this in English for me? And after some time, the Korean's expression changed. And he looked at me and said, Pratap, you don't speak Hindi. I said, no, I don't speak Hindi at all. I mean, I don't understand Hindi. And he had this shocked expression. Said, look, I, I negotiated a lot, paid you a lot of money to get you from Grey to join Shale. And I asked you 1,000 questions, except this one question, whether you speak.
Right.
Now, if Hindi is the most popular language in the country, how can I have hired somebody who doesn't speak it? So I said, look, don't worry. I mean, if that was a handicap, then I wouldn't have got as far as I have in my life, right? And
Right.
I don't, work with the language. Instead, I use emotions. I
Mhm.
work emotions. I work on emotions. I mean, love is the same in every language. A mother's relationship with a child is the same in every language. A child, when the child falls, cries, whether it's a person from Congo or whether it's a person in Eskimo who's living in Alaska, or somebody in Siberia, or somebody in Antarctic. It's the same thing, right? I mean, if you're hungry, you will eat. Human emotion, human feeling, physiological need, requirement. So I work with common human values and human things and human feelings. So I haven't got it wrong in all my years. I don't think I will get it wrong.
So I have that video ready now. I'll just play it.
Okay, please. Oh, it's one of the most
Pretty old.
very, very old. This would
Yeah.
be 1989, 1989.
Wow. I wasn't born yet.
Exactly. Now, so again, this commercial was directed by Ram Advani.
Okay.
So Ram was a director, and he made one change in this. And again, that's the other thing: the relationship of creative directors or creative people and the director who's working on your film. So my script had a young lady who was knitting, a pregnant young lady who was knitting, and then he said, you know what? Um, the most young people can actually handle music, handle sound, but the older you get, right, they get more irritated by the sound. So replace it with an older lady. So there, it works because
Right.
if for
Exactly.
them this noise is actually music and beautiful, then it'll work for everyone. So I said, fantastic thought. And Ram's idea was to replace the young lady with the old lady. And to me, that was the most critical change in the script that I had done. The rest, everything was the same, you know.
Right.
So Ram made that change, and I think that is important, and that's the most critical change that ever happened in that film, and why the film became so successful, and why the brand became what it is.
Yeah,
And
that
again,
line
like
makes
you said,
a lot
yeah,
of sense.
and like you said, and like you saw, there is no language, right? I mean,
Yeah.
except for that last bit where you say auto music switch off at night. There's nothing else.
Right.
It's visual and audio, right? No
Right.
dependence on the language. So the
Right.
first that we saw, the PNB thing, I will never be able to write that dialogue ever. I
Right.
can visually see the film. I can do a film like that, but I will never be able to write stuff. There are a lot of people who do that. Their craft is that, and that's one of my deficiencies. But then there are people whom I have in my office who do that beautifully.
But you know what? A lot of the clients that we have interacted with are now all in favor of this approach of no dialogues and music plus supers approach. And they have a different logic to it, which actually makes sense. So they have to run these ads across multiple locations, right? So rather than having a very amateur dubbing of the entire ad, just make it a very visual and super oriented ad so that you can just easily replace the text, which I think is a great thing. And especially right now, since all these social media platforms, they begin the playing of the video even without the audio. Like you have to manually tap the button to hear the audio again. So again, there's a risk of people missing out the starting lines if you go for a dialogue approach.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something that's interesting that's going on right now.
So maybe I was far ahead of the times. You see.
Yeah, you're far ahead of the time. Yeah, this is the right time for you then.
Very good.
Yeah,
Very good. I'm very much contemporary.
great. Cool, Pratap. I just wanted to dive more into you as a creative professional. Like, we all know that creative professionals turn pro when they actually put in the work and do the practice. So, it might seem like a very generic question, but how do you practice creativity? Like, do you have a process for that?
No, to see it is see, like they say, most detectives, most cops, right? They are cops by reflex.
Yeah,
They everybody as a criminal. They look at everything with suspicion, right?
right.
Uh, Much like a priest, for that matter. I mean, if you are talking about a proper priest, they look at everybody as a sinner. Everybody needs redemption. Everybody needs to be cleansed of their sins.
Yeah,
Or a grandmother who suddenly thinks of children and wants to be very nice and cook for them. And it's a general motherly feeling that happens. The same with lawyers. Lawyers are always trained to see, okay, are you lying? Are you lying? Are you lying? Can I see loopholes? Can I see loopholes? The same way, when you get into this line, you look at everything and you say, hey, that's a nice idea. Yeah, I can use
yeah,
that thought.
yeah,
Oh, I saw a car going in a specific way. I can use that in an ad for something else. So you automatically, it becomes a reflex for you, right? No, so that reflex perhaps was there when I was a kid as well, to create things, but that is something which you need to inculcate and build and keep feeding in you,
yeah.
right? For
So
me,
more like a mindset shift. Like you have to
absolutely,
be actually
absolutely,
thinking
yeah,
about that process
right.
while
So
you're
even when I'm scrolling through something or the other, and if I see a nice picture, the first thing is that it's a nice picture for something, and I make a mental note of it. And today, there is so much of stuff that is coming my way. I keep forgetting half the things. So when I see something really spectacular, I write it down, and I keep
yeah,
a small, on my notes in my phone. I keep writing down this picture for that, So, and I keep keywords for it. Okay, so this is
yeah,
for a recipe or a food ad or a mobile ad or something like that, and I tag them within my. I will have my own little system of writing stuff out and keeping
yeah.
because there is so much of stuff. On an average day, I pull out about 20 to 30 thoughts,
Awesome.
and I write it down, and that has become a habit. So even when
Yeah,
I'm having a conversation with somebody, I would pick up my phone and write something down because sometimes a thought comes in through the left ear and goes out through the right ear. It doesn't stay unless you capture it.
right,
And if you're constantly thinking about seeing new ideas and picking up new ideas, you will keep forgetting half of them at least. And
right.
one of the things that I do is I keep writing every day. So that's my skill. At the end of the day, writing is my craft. Okay, take everything away, and I'm a copywriter. I'm a writer, not just copy. So I write. I mean, I could write on anything and everything. I don't need inspiration.
A daily
I
habit to
Huh?
you've made it a daily habit to write.
Oh, that's the poetry that I write, right? So
Yeah,
that's something which I do at 6:15 in the morning every day, and I've been doing that for the last 5 years, more than 5 years actually. But that's one of the things that I do. But I keep writing, and a lot of people say that I need to be in the right place at the right time. I need inspiration to hit me. I need a glass of beer by my side. I need to be sitting in the seaside. Forget it. Yeah. I mean, you're going to be sitting in a small little cubicle in a noisy office. You have to be your best at writing at that point. So in your head is everything that you need to write. I mean, what happens if there is no internet? You still have to write.
right.
And that's how people need to train for. And you need to write within, in 100 words you need to write this, or in 20 words you need to write this. You need to train yourself for it.
Twitter might be a good practice, no? Because you have that word
Yeah,
limit.
in fact, I used to start writing. I used to write on Twitter, and I never used to. I mean, I'm not. I'm very bad at Twitter. But I used to use that when it had a limit of that 120
150. Yeah.
characters,
Yeah.
characters for that. I used to write everything within it, so I know exactly how much should a descriptor have for a post.
Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah,
think the general public doesn't really understand how hard it's to write a short form content over a long form.
yeah,
Like, I
and
think,
see that. See, if you're a true writer, you can stretch a thought for as long as you want, you
yeah.
know, and you need to be
Copyright.
fluid. Yeah, you need to be very fluid. You need to be able to write a tweet. You need to be able to write long body copy. You need to be writing about things you don't know. So many things. I mean, and to me, there's so much to write about in this world.
Yeah. But keeping it short and writing impactful short form content is much harder than we think, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, see, it is easier for me because I've been doing this for a long time, right? From
I guess it's a practice of
it is
doing that exercise that has
it is
helped you,
practice.
right?
I mean, you go to a grizzled, general physician, a GP, and he looks at you and he'll say, "Oh, I think you have diabetes." How does he know you even without even feeling you? Because he knows you, right? Because he's seen so much of it that
Yeah,
he can sort of identify it without even touching and feeling a person.
right. So I think, Pratap, we'll go into our last segment.
Okay.
I just wanted, I think there are a lot of creative professionals who would want to watch a podcast like this and get more value for somebody like you. So, keeping it very general, what advice would you give young creative directors, copywriters, or other advertising professionals on growing and having a career as big as you have right now? If we were to sort of have a trajectory similar to yours, what could we do to get there based on your experience?
Okay. One is that you have to love what you do,
Right.
uh, uh, and when I say that, I don't see myself working. In fact, I keep saying this: the first day I went to work was the last day I went to work, because I went in as a to Mudra as a copywriter, and that's when I started writing it. And then I said, "Man, I am here to have some fun." So for me,
Right.
I get up in the morning and I say, "Time to kick some ass," and I'm raring to go early morning, right?
Yeah.
So you need to love what you do. If you don't, you will get bored. Now,
Right.
if you get bored, you can't be interesting, and you will never be an interesting writer or an interesting creative person.
Yeah.
Okay, read, watch, experience, observe. The length and breadth of your expression is the length and breadth of your experience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the more you um, take in, the more you have in your reservoir to write about or to express.
I think young professionals in this day and age have a upper edge, right? They have access to YouTube and so much content out there to get
Yeah,
influenced
but
by.
see that's very mechanical watching. You can watch it with
And
your eyes. You can watch
correct.
it with your eyes, but you have to see it with your soul. Only
Yeah.
then will it stay inside. You have to absorb it. I mean, seeing a postcard of a lake is not as good as sitting by the lake and enjoying it. Because when you look at the postcard or a video, especially on mute, you're missing the sounds of the waves, of the little ripples. You're missing the sounds of the butterfly. I mean, the honeybees that are going around in the background. You're missing the sound of the birds that are chirping. You're missing the sound of the little, train that is going in the horizon, the little hoot that comes in, miles after the puff happens, so to say. Right? You're missing so many details. Now you have to
Right.
get your expression has to have detail. It can't be flat. Why do we love stuff that has got lots of detail. I mean, you go into a palace, especially the French palaces and all that. You see the kind of work on the walls. It can be just four walls, right? But look at the
Yeah.
walls they have made. It is so replete with stuff. I mean, you can spend hours looking at it.
Right.
So you need to. So when you watch something, you need to take in everything. You need to dive into it. You won't enjoy it. I mean, you can stand by the beach and watch the sea, but you also have to walk into the sea to feel the water. How does the sand feel under you? How does your feet feel when the water goes away? It kind of take the sand from under your feet. You know, can you
Right.
see little crabs running around? There's so many things that you miss out. So to
Right.
me, while they have so much of stuff to watch, I don't think it is going past their eyes, and that is not going to create a rich soul. And you need soul to create. If you don't have that soul, then you don't have anything. Then it's very hollow.
Yeah. Cool. Pradap, one last thing. Like,
Sure.
this is something that I wanted personally also. Like, how do we do creative selling better? Like, if we go into a pitch meeting with a brand, like, what would be your process?
So, so there was a time when I was much junior, um, where I used to be led by servicing people. They say, okay, we have to go to this client and we have to share at least 5 campaigns. It's a pitch.
Right.
And then you're working on 5 campaigns, and then you realize that you're not even concentrating on one. You have 5 different thoughts going, in all sorts of directions. So you go to the pitch meeting and you're presenting 5 campaigns, and then the client is looking at you saying, how scattered are you? How
Right.
scattered are you as an agency? But on the other hand, the servicing partners I went with are saying, look at the spread of work that we've got for you, right? So then I slowly started thinking like a client, saying, what is the client sitting there for? He is not definitely sitting there to buy a campaign. I can tell you that. He's looking at buying an agency, right? Or connecting with an agency. He's sitting there to buy the thinking of an agency. How does his agency think? How how effective is their thinking? How clear is their thinking? How sharp are they? Now, if
Yeah.
if they've got their sharpness right, how has that sharpness come into play in the creative work that they do? Right?
Right.
So you have one position or one direction that you have placed your thinking on. Of course, one platform can have 100 ways of looking at it, but can be best expressed in one thought, right, or in one campaign. Now, I
So you
only
just idea.
I only present one campaign, and I
Great.
present one campaign, but I present the entire 360 degree look at that thing, saying that if you want to do a print ad, this is how it's going to look like. If you want to do a social campaign, this is what it's going to look like. If you want to do a film campaign, this is how it's going to look like. If you want to do radio, this is how the thought translates into radio. This is how it will translate into Twitter, etc. The client is sitting there to buy the conviction of the agency. It is not sitting there to buy the campaign. Say, if I give these guys my account, how will they think? How forceful are they? How strong are they? Because, like I said earlier, a good client knows that he is no good at doing advertising. He wants somebody who will lead him. Agency people or advertising agencies have to lead their clients. You know, uh, clients have to follow agencies. Today, it's the other
Right.
way around. We've become
Uh,
subservient. Great advertising agencies have always led clients into success. And they've only done it because they've been bold, committed, ferocious, and convincing about the work that they do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you don't want to get into a pit stage and look like one bunch of nursery kids running, you know, play school stuff around them. Yeah, they don't want it. They want the
Right.
agents to be strong for them and make and give them value for the money that they're spending. Now, uh, I've been to many multiple pitches. One of the biggest pitches that I've been to is a client called ONGC, the oil and natural gas,
Really? Yeah.
in 2003 when they were doing their IPO campaign. And it was led by a gentleman called Shubir Raha, possibly one of the most astute and the most arrogant CMDs I ever met in my life. That man was a rhinoceros. He would bulldoze into everything, into you as well, into your thinking as well.
Right.
So I went into the pitch knowing that, look, I have to face this man who is so convinced. In fact, he's the guy who wrote the brief himself. And see, this unfortunately, my life has taken me through some really fantastic clients, some really brilliant minds, some huge personalities. So, so when I compare my clients of that stature to some of those wannabes today, I feel very sad. And when they say like, and I'm telling them, look, these legends have given me the freedom to work for their companies and have been successful. But unfortunately, I have to look at you. You pay me money, so I have
Right.
to say, okay, let's just do it the way you want because you know best, you see, you know. And a lot of agency guys won't say this because they just don't have the guts to say it. But the fact is that I know in the back of their heads this is what they're thinking. At least the senior guys laugh at their clients. I'm telling you, some of them. So, I mean, I'm not saying that all my clients are like that. Some of the clients are very good. Some of them are terrible. But that's the way it is. You can't have them all, right? So I had to sell the brief for ONGC was written by this man, and he had a line which said, "ONGC makes tomorrow brighter." That was the line,
Okay.
and he also said that if you intend on changing this line, be very sure that I'm going to ask you questions, and it
Wow.
better be better than this line, and you have to substantiate why. Huh?
That sounded like a threat.
It is, yeah, it was a threat. So he said,
Huh.
you want to mess with my line, you make sure that you have the guts to mess with it, and you are better at it. And you have to tell me why. So I looked at it and said, look, this is not going to happen. From the
Right.
tone of his brief, I know I will be walking into a execution chamber if I change the line. So
Right.
let me work with that line and see what I can do best. Right? So I made that line come alive. And it was an IPO. So when you say make tomorrow brighter, and it was aimed obviously at the investors. So how do you physically bring make tomorrow brighter?
Right.
My campaign was that, saying that today ONGC is worth 10,000 crores, right? So that is today. So tomorrow's ad said today ONGC is worth 12,000 crores. The day after, today ONGC is worth 14,000 crores. The day after that, today ONGC is worth 15,000 crores. So with every day, the future for the investors who would look at ONGC as a place to put in their money, because the value was growing every day, because ONGC was exploring and pulling out oil and gas, and so to say, right? So if you put in money, tomorrow will be brighter.
So
So
you
I
ended up going that same line.
I did 30 ads and I
Wow.
pasted them on newspapers. And I said, sir, this is what it is. Today is January 1st. Today, ONGC is worth so much. Today is January 2nd. Today, you're worth so much. And he looked at it and said, this is brilliant. This is
So 30 days,
audacity as its best. Huh?
was it 30 days a month?
Yeah, it was a 30-day campaign, one ad a day.
Wow.
And it
Yeah.
turned out to be one of the most successful IPOs in the country ever. Sold out in 11 seconds flat.
What did he say again?
He said, this is the most audacious campaign ever. Yeah, and he was an audacious man. And of course, across time, we became, I wouldn't
And
say
with that,
friends.
it's great. I know.
He was very fond of me. Um, uh, Unfortunately, he's no more. He passed away. And
Oh,
he was writing a book. And he wanted me to write the bit on the advertising of ONGC. And
wow.
I had written it, but unfortunately, that book never came through because he passed away. In fact, I remember the initial spend of ONGC in the public space was a lot of money, you know, and obviously the print media wouldn't, because it's a Navaratna company and all that. And people said, why did you have to spend so much of money, etc., etc.? And somebody called me up from media and said, look, this is a humongous amount of money that you have spent behind. I said, look, first of all, let's be very clear, it's not my money. It is their money, right? I
Yeah.
just did the campaign. They said, why do you think they did the campaign? I said, look, ONGC is ONGC. It's India's biggest corporate, so to say, right? Public sector corporate. And trust me, it is a giant that was woken up. It was Kumbhakarna who was woken up. And when Kumbhakarna walked, the earth trembled. So that's the feeling. So and
Right.
I was quoted, and I think a day after that, I get a call from CMD's office, and he picked up the phone and said, "Hey, Pratap, that is very good that you said, huh?" So it was in line with the way he would have thought. So when a giant walks, the earth would tremble, and you would know, which is why you needed that money to be spent.
Absolutely. That's a great story, brother.
Yeah.
I think we're out of time for our session today. Unfortunately, we would have
Oh,
loved to hear more stories from your escapades in the past.
sure.
Anyway, thank you so much for giving us your time
Very
and
welcome.
giving back to the community. We hope the people who are watching have gotten good value from what you've spoken. And I would like to just sign off by just saying again, like, let's remember that great, memorable ad campaigns come out when there's trust and synergy between the client and the agency. And let's try to be bolder and put out marketing communications that aren't just exposition of facts, that require some thought and creativity. Let's try to put videos out there that are designed to entertain first and then sell. And let's make it worthwhile for them to hear out your business proposition.
That's right.
Like, let them hear your story with a smile. And hopefully, let's bring back that golden age of
See,
advertising.
Noel, one last thought.
Yeah.
See, nobody wants to be a boring person in this world, right? The same.
Right.
I don't want to be a boring person because I don't. I know when people won't talk to me. I don't know you. I don't think you want to be a boring person, then I wouldn't be talking to you, right? So nobody ever wants to be boring. So why does a brand need to be boring? Why are you building a boring brand? Who wants to
Right.
talk to a boring brand? Who wants I mean, people will look at me if I've bought a boring brand and say, "What sort of a guy are you? Why have you gone and bought that stupid thing?" It's a boring brand. So make interesting advertising, right? And like
Yeah.
they say, the magic happens when the agency and the client work together and respecting each other's strengths. And to use a very, very often used cliche, like they say, it takes two hands to clap, right?
Right.
So if you want to make noise, you got to work together, you got to meet. And that sound is the sound of your advertising. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Absolutely. And with that, I think we're going to sign off right now. So,
Okay.
again, to all the creators and future advertisers out there, let's try to bring back that golden age of advertising. And here is us signing off. Make sure to get back to us on Meadow videos. Next week on Saturday, we'll have another amazing guest for you guys. So, see you guys there.
Thank you. Pleasure being.
Thank you, Pratap.
Yeah, welcome.